Good morning. Welcome to the Greenway. And it delighted you're all here. And if my memory is correct, which it often isn't, this would be the greatest number of grants in the largest amount that we've ever done. That's pretty close.
Pretty close.
Yeah. Well, anyway, no one's going to challenge me on that. We're delighted you're here. And it, let me see, is she on that screen? Yes. Now, how do we turn her on?
She's on.
She's on? She can hear us? Well, okay. Anyway, that's the omnipresent Sarah who's in Florida. And this is her last meeting as chair of the Conservancy. And can you hear that, Sarah?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know whatever she said, but it sounded like a yelp to me, didn't it? Yeah. Well, that's okay. All right. I'm Barney McHenry, and we start off these meetings by introducing ourselves. And I've been chair of the council for quite a while. And Kevin, you are.
I'm Kevin Burke. I'm currently treasurer of the Greenway, and happy to be here. Marcus Diglione. I'm the acting executive director of the Hudson Valley Greenway and National Heritage Area.
Lydia Biscup, representing Senator Sue Serino, 41st District.
Andy Bicking, Scenic Hudson, here for Steve Rosenberg today.
Vincent Alfieri for Rockland County Executive Ed Day.
Jane Daniels as a Conservancy Board member.
Todd Westice, New York State DOT Regional Director, Hudson Valley Region.
Cindy Lancetta, Greenway Conservancy Board.
Ned Ames, Bronx County.
Betsy Jacks, Thomas Cole National Historic Site.
Andy Schmar, the Putnam County representative for the Communities Council.
Linda Vonderheader, Runster County representative for the Communities Council.
Frank Bergman from Hudson River Boat and Yacht Club Association.
And there we go.
Hi, I'm Sean Sawyer. I'm the president at the Awana Partnership.
Sarah Olson is the National Park Service.
Our professional den mother. Sarah, this is almost the 100th anniversary of the first meeting. Yes, right?
You didn't make the first one.
Yeah, I remember it well.
99th anyway.
Hi, I'm Betty Head. I'm the Albany County representative to the Communities Council.
Wade Aldrich, member of the Communities Council.
Scott Keller, Greenway staff, Trails and Special Projects Director and Finance Manager.
Frank Rooney, Department of Agriculture Markets.
Stefan Yarabak, Greenway Conservancy.
Johanna Yuan, Orange County Historian.
Bob Elliott, Council Board Member.
Sally Mazzarella, Council Board member.
Jane McLaughlin, Greenway Conservancy Board member.
Laura Geedy, Hudson River Estuary Program. I'm here for Friend Unwell.
Hi, I'm Chris Stieber from the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, representing our Regional Director, Linda Cooper.
Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Jay Meeker with the New York State Department of State.
Okay, now starting.
Association.
Brett Swordlock of Columbia Land Conservancy.
Owen Raptor, Dutchess County Planning Development, representing County Executive Marcus Molinaro.
Meg Downey, representing the Northeast Historical Society.
Welcome, Herbert.
Robert Chasen, representing OGS for Commissioner Mosquito.
Representing the Cold Spring Capital Restoration Board.
Carol Edley, the High Falls Conservancy.
And Richard Edley, also High Falls Conservancy.
Thank you.
Joe Edison, Washington Greenway Trail Committee Chair.
Meredith Stewart, Executive Director for the Round Rollers in Washington County Region.
Leslie Reed, Fairmount State Historic Site. Mary Malcolm, Staff Kirk State Historic Site.
Susan Durant, Claremont State Historic Site.
Leslie Walter, Friends of the Old Program.
Ted Zahn, Friends of Friends.
Chris Monticello, Assistant Chairman of the Ladies King, President of the Friends of the Old Program.
Sarah Kelsey from the Samuel Gerson Museum of Art of City Pulse. Susan Holland, the Executive Director of the Historic Albany Foundation.
Erin Glennon, the Albany Planning and Development Department.
Jennifer Neff, Washington Rochambeau National Historic Trail Association.
Ed Marcy, the McCready Historic Site.
Street lighting, private citizen.
Hank Osborne, New York, New Jersey, Trail Conference.
Rick Fisher, Friends of Deputy Park.
Diana Crest, Friends of Deputy Park.
Carl Beard with the National Park Service, Rivers, Trails, Conservation.
High Park Recreation Director, High Park Director, One Mayor, and Nancy Mancock. Sally Becker, representing the Hudson chapter of the Adelaide Platform.
Barbara Hovens, Town of Hyde Park Historian.
Rachel Dykstra, Board Member of the Old Town Proposed Theater. Mindy Graceman, Executive Director, Hudson History Museum.
Robert McKeon, Town Supervisor, Red Hook.
Rob Wallenberger.
Colonel Jim Johnson, Executive Director, Hudson Valley Institute, and
Thank you, Dan. All right, now it's time.
Members on the phone?
What?
We have members on the phone?
You do?
Jennifer Schwartz Berkey.
Oh, Jennifer, you're down in Florida, right?
I'm Sarah Jackie Park. Oh.
All right. Anybody else?
Jennifer, Sarah, and anybody else on the line?
Okay.
All right.
All right. Now, Kevin, if you would do the salute to the flag, please, sir. Mr. Burke. Please stand.
Please stand and say pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now, let me see. The first order of business. Okay, we've completed that, and now we go directly to. Okay, who's representing Senator Serino? I forgot.
Lydia,
Okay.
over here.
All right. You're first on the list, and we would be delighted if you'd say a word or two, please. Thank you very much.
So, good morning, everyone. Talk about being quick on your feet here. Thank you. Senator Serino is in Albany today. She actually has been there for the entire week and living, eating, breathing budget 24/7. So she sends her regards. And she also, I will communicate to her this morning everything that is discussed here this morning because she is sensitive and does support the resources in the Hudson Valley for the Greenway, and she's very committed to that. I'll just share one thing that when there was a talk in the community about repurposing the Mills Mansion, she and Assemblymember Barrett worked very hard to create a public forum where the constituents could voice their concerns about the repurposing of that property. So she does listen to what the constituents have to say, and she will continue to do that. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak on her behalf. Thank you, and happy Easter. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. And Nadine Barrett is also
is in Albany today, and her representative is not here yet.
Okay, well, that's all right. Nadine Barrett's been a member and has been here many times. But the person who's been here the most is the well, I don't see her.
She's here.
Sarah Olson, where?
Right here.
Oh, there's Sarah. This is not hail and farewell, but it ain't far from it, is it? Okay, Sarah. No comment.
Thank you, Barney. It's my pleasure to welcome you here on behalf of both the National Park Service and the National Archives. It's a year of many anniversaries. It's the National Park Service's centennial 100-year birthday. It's the Franklin Delano Roosevelt Library's 75th anniversary. It's the 70th anniversary of the opening of the Roosevelt Home for the first time to the public. So we have a lot going on this year. happy Women's History Month. The director of the Park Service is coming to Valkill next week to celebrate Women's History Month by distributing every kid in a park passes that the Park Service and a lot of other federal areas are giving out to fourth graders and their families free throughout this year, and I think through next year as well. And finally, it's spring, and I see the store manager of the New Deal store back there in the back, and I know before you leave you'll all want to get there is a new set of a Hudson Valley seed collection that we're introducing. It's called the Hyde Park Collection. It's featuring seeds from the several gardens on these properties, starting with the Roosevelt Home Garden, which will begin to grow at some point throughout the season. So we've had support from the Roosevelt Vanderbilt Conservancy to get this new seed collection going. So be sure to pick them up before you leave. Thank you.
You did that very well. Thank you. Winnie, do you want to say a word or two about those gardens of yours?
Oh, the gardens. Yes, of course.
No, I mean, limit yourself to gardens. That's all. Yes, you could say Henry Diamond.
Okay. Thank you, Barney. There's a very wonderful thing that's happening right out here. A 2-acre vegetable and fruit garden that was for 2 generations supporting the Roosevelt family here with its produce. And then in 1946, when the property was opened to the public, it became an asphalted parking lot and continued to be that until about 15 years ago, when this building was built and the new parking lot was created, and that became just fallow land. It is now tilled. It will be planted in the next several weeks. This has been the first big project of the Roosevelt Vanderbilt Conservancy, which is comparatively new organization supporting the National Park Service on its sites here in Hyde Park. We've raised almost all the money to do the planting and to get this wonderful project going, which will complete the visitor's experience in authenticity of how the property operated here during the President's lifetime. And we would rather not get into the budget situations. The project itself to create is about $800,000, but then we're going to need to raise money to keep it going for the next few years. Anyhow, go see it and come back in a month or 2 or 3, and and then come back in the autumn, and you can be part of the harvest.
Explain where it is.
Yes, it's right immediately west of the library, immediately north of the Rose Garden, where the President and Mrs. Roosevelt are buried. And so it's just a few hundred feet from here. And now one other unrelated matter. It is appropriate to note, better change glasses here. It is appropriate to note the death on February 20th of Henry Diamond, the prominent environmental attorney who served as the state's founding Commissioner of Environmental Conservation, 1970 to 73, but who, of greater relevance to us, could also be thought of as the godfather of the Greenway. While it was Assemblyman and later Congressman Hinchey who became the father, successfully bringing into law these bodies to include the National Heritage Area, over many years previously, Mr. Diamond, as a close associate of Lawrence Rockefeller, had been laying the groundwork, quietly organizing studies, and supporting arguments for a comprehensive, effective, coordinating, valley-wide endeavor addressing the cultural, natural, and economic well-being of our region. He had previously worked on the White House Natural Beauty Commission in the Johnson administration and as chair of the President Nixon's Council on Environmental Quality. 5 years ago, Mr. Diamond received the Secretary of the Interior's Lifetime Conservation Achievement Award. We honor the Greenway's distinguished godfather. Thank you.
Okay. If Sarah Olson is in fact our den mother, and she is, because we've been here more times than any other place, Henry Diamond really is our godfather. And some of you may remember when DEC started. He was the first head of DEC. He was an associate of Nelson Rockefeller. Well, that can't be Henry Diamond. He started the campaign for the first Bond Act by bicycling from Buffalo to the Battery in New York City. Winnie, right?
That's correct.
And it was really successful, and it really was Henry Diamond's notion to create something like this. So we owe him a lot. He was a great man. He came from Tennessee, lived in Washington, and started the first environmental law firm, Beveridge and Diamond, and it's still in business, and it's the largest. So many of you knew him. Those who did loved him, and we all should. And now going on to the next order of business, which I guess is the agenda review, and okay, I've done that. That's the agenda. And now we go right into the Conservancy. Kevin.
Sarah, you're on.
I think this is where I come in, and I hope everyone can hear me.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
You can.
Okay. So I'm so sorry I can't be there. I just wish I could, but hopefully we can take this next important step together with me being here remotely. So the moment I will call the Conservancy meeting to order, and we will call now for officer elections. So with elections, we use Robert's rules. And I am going to call for a motion to accept nominations from the floor. In fact, to make it easy, I will actually make that motion to accept nominations from the floor, but I need a second.
Second.
May I have a second?
Yes.
Second.
Second from Stefan Yarabek, Sarah.
Thank you, Mark. All right, then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So that motion is carried. So now I am opening the floor for nominations for the following officer positions: Vice Chair and Treasurer.
This is Jane Daniels. I'd like to nominate Kevin Burke as the Vice Chair and Jane McLaughlin as the Treasurer.
I second that nomination.
Great, thank you. So I hear Kevin Burke for Vice Chair and Jane McLaughlin for Treasurer. Are there any other nominations? Okay, so hearing none, nominations are closed. And at this point, we will call, so all in favor of Kevin Burke for Vice Chair, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Then the ayes have it that Kevin is elected Vice Chair. I now will ask for all in favor for having Jane McLaughlin as Treasurer, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Then Jane McLaughlin has said that she will be our Treasurer. And I think that's it. Wonderful.
Sarah, I just wanted to thank you so much for joining us and being such a wonderful steward of the Conservancy all these years. And I can say, having joined the Greenway under your leadership, I've learned so much from watching you. You are a paragon of elegance and class, and just someone that has been such a great citizen of the Hudson Valley. And we miss you, but at least we're happy to see you this morning from where you are, and hope to see you again soon in person. We also would like to take this opportunity to honor you more formally with a proclamation that I have here that I would like to read on behalf of the Conservancy and for everyone here in recognition of your outstanding service. So this is a proclamation commending Sarah Johns Griffin for distinguished service to the Hudson River Valley Greenway. Whereas Sarah Johns Griffin has served with great distinction as chair of the Greenway Conservancy for the Hudson River Valley from 2009 through 2016, and whereas under Ms. Griffin's leadership, Greenway trails have grown to include 773 miles of land and water trails, which is incredible. And whereas under Ms. Griffin's leadership, the Hudson River Greenway Water Trail was made a national water trail, which includes nearly 100 access sites. And whereas Ms. Griffin oversaw the allocation of $2.8 million to more than 200 grant projects throughout the Hudson River Valley. And whereas Ms. Griffin has provided the citizens of the Hudson River Valley with her time, her energy, and her dedication. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the joint boards of the Hudson River Valley Greenway do hereby honor and commend Sarah Johns Griffin for her many years of dedicated service as chair of the Greenway Conservancy, and be it further resolved that a copy of this proclamation be provided to Sarah Johns Griffin by the Greenway as a symbol of appreciation, and I might add love. Sarah, thank you so much.
I just can't take all that credit. The words were too wonderful because the credit really does go to all of you. I've been so happy to do what I could to push this incredible agenda forward of the Greenway. Those numbers are staggering. I had not put them together, so it's just such a testament to the hard work of the incredible staff under Mark Consiglio's leadership, but every single staff member there, Scott, Beth, Chanel, it's been astonishing. I've been a member of the board and chair long enough to have seen the ebbs and flows of staffing, and that ability to hold on to the goals, the final effort, the final goals have just been astonishing. I think if I had one just plea or great encouragement is for everyone to keep supporting this wonderful staff. Just say, Barney, it has been such a pleasure working with you with your great leadership. And to all of my fellow board members, to have your varied insights and talents has just been wonderful. And then Kevin, I can't think of a better successor. You have astounded us all from the beginning with your ability to capture the very thoughts of the group into a brilliant call to action. So I look forward to staying on the board as long as I can, but I am so happy to turn the reins over together. Thank you.
It also should be noted, I don't think it said anything there about the Heritage Weekend, did it?
It didn't say anything.
Okay. That was Sarah's idea. Sarah? That's been enormously successful. And
Now it's a statewide event. The last year included over 300 events from Niagara Falls to Montauk Point.
Sarah, so you're still in business. Okay. Now, let me see. Having done all of that, we should now turn to a presentation. And the first is, maybe all which is wrong. There is continuity in this place. Is that Sean Sawyer is the new Sarah Griffin, and that's fair enough. Yes. And Sean has been a Hudson Valley person. Actually, goes all the way from the Bronx. Yes.
Northern Manhattan. I look out at the Spite Dial.
Yes. Dykeman.
Yes.
Dykeman. He's a sort of Dykeman person. Now, why don't you tell us what you plan to do?
Sure, I'm glad to. Thank you very much.
Okay, please welcome Sean Sawyer.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning. And hi, Sarah.
It's wonderful and to be here. I didn't realize that this was going to happen with Sarah this morning, and it's a great privilege to be here and be part of it. And I thank Mark very much for inviting me to come in. It was about a week ago, I think, and so this is a little extemporized presentation, but I do want to share with you some of the great things that are happening in Alana. In particular, this year in 2016, as Sarah Olson said, is a year of many anniversaries, and including the 50th anniversary of the preservation of Olana, its acquisition by New York State, with Governor Rockefeller signing the bill for that acquisition on the front steps at Olana in a very dramatic way. And I want to do a couple things here. We have a short film that has been produced in partnership with our organization, the Olana Partnership, and WMHT on the saving of Olana. It is the core, this is about an 8.5-minute film that is the core of the preservation story about Olana, the 50th anniversary that we are kicking off celebrating this year. And will extend into next year because 1966 was the year of acquisition, 1967 was the year of public access, of opening the site to the public. This short film is the core of what will be a full-length 30-minute feature that WMHT is still working on. It will air later this year, both on WMHT in our region as well as on WNET in the New York City region. And so the partnership and the Taconic region, New York State Parks are thrilled to have this opportunity to really celebrate this great preservation story, this very significant American preservation story. So I want to show this short film, and then I'll make just a few comments about a couple aspects of it that I think are interesting, in particular, maybe specific to Olana and its legacy and what we continue. And then I'm glad to take any questions or however the format will work here. Okay, so let's show the film. Oh, and I want to thank the Greenway very much for its support for the film. You can see up there the logos and Columbia Memorial Hospital as well as a principal sponsor, and the Carolyn Marks Blackwood Foundation.
Greatest American artist to date. In historic preservation terms, Olana has the highest degree of integrity of any artist house in the world.
Yeah, I might.
In many ways, Olana is a three-dimensional painting by Church. He gets to manipulate the landscape. He gets this great background of the Hudson River and the Catskill Mountains. To come here and to walk around Olana is to be in a Hudson River School painting.
So what you're seeing here, and this will encourage you all to go to the website, WMHT's website, and watch it at home in full stereo with your headphones, relaxing with a cup of tea. You're seeing some great new footage that we were able to shoot with drones at Olana. We're basically presenting, this is for an audience that is not necessarily familiar with Olana, and it's presenting the story here at the beginning, what Olana is about the house, the landscape that Church and Frederick and Isabel Church created over 40 years. It's about Church and his significance as really the first international American art star artist who was of international fame and success, and the resources that came to bear because of that. His investigations in landscape, in blending and bringing together science and nature, and his art, his global explorations, his 2 trips to the Andes, to the Arctic. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here. And then we get into the end of his life. Olana is left to his youngest son, Louis Church, and his wife, Sally Goodchurch. And we're telling now the sort of dark moment that came at that point in 1964 when Sally Church died. Louis Church preceded her dying in 1943 in the house. And again, more of that drone footage that we shot. Some wonderful visuals we had this opportunity to really capture that we hope to be using. Again, this film is going to go into our visitor center film starting here very shortly for the next 2 seasons at the very least. So I'm trying to see. Okay, so Mark Prozorski, our landscape curator, I believe is speaking now about the sort of preservation context in history. This was the time, 1963, there's Mark, that the Catskill Mountain House came down, that Penn Station was coming down, of course, so it's sort of this crucial moment in American preservation history, and Olana really faced that prospect as well. Sally dies, leaves the house to her heirs, and they decide that they have no recourse but to sell it, disperse the collections. David Huntington, the man you're seeing here, this is footage from a 1986 film interview with David, where he basically says he's a young art historian this time, teaching at Smith College, driving over the Berkshires pretty much every day to come to Alana to really raise and lead this campaign. He's talking about the incredible intactness of the collections at Alana, that make it such a distinctive place. And he calls it, in this phrase, a mega artifact, which is kind of a 1970s sounding term, but we can call it a piece of environmental art if we want, in any ways, but certainly how we're understanding it. He's talking about really being willing to risk his life to save this place, this incredible site for American art and American history and global culture, by laying down in front of a bulldozer. That's his phrase. That's what he says in this film. Let's see. We're showing some more great footage. And was it Robert Hughes, the art critic, called Olana a viewing platform for the American sublime. And I think that's one of the most kind of ways to kind of capture what the house is there, in the sense that it is oriented entirely and completely to the landscape. It's an integrated vision of churches. One of our great supporters, Dorothy Heil, who's working on a book on the Saving Story, talks about Huntington again leading this coalition that he forms. And this is a very important point. I believe we're about to get into this, where this is the sort of crux of how Alana was saved, which was building a local coalition, a grassroots movement, opening the house with volunteers. You'll see a shot of them soon, mostly women. That was the fact. Over 30,000 people in 18 months came through Olana. That matches our current capacity for the house. And also, so this local coalition, business leaders, grassroots, but then also extending, very importantly, through Huntington's connections and his very ardent, passionate work to garner national interest, national support, national understanding. And this was a huge lift, because he had to not only, kind of reach out. He sent telegraphs to every museum director across the country, to every major newspaper and every major publication. He saw the Olana story and the significance as being of national significance from the get-go. But it's incredible lift, because Church's reputation had reached its lowest point. His paintings, one of Twilight in the Wilderness, was offered to I heard this from a Yale art history professor, was offered to the Yale Art Museum for $100, and it was turned down. It's now, the value is beyond the point, but it's now a star of the Cleveland Museum of Art's collection. But Huntington was writing a book about Church. Here's a group from St. Mary's Academy in Hudson visiting. So he was, at the same time that he was running this preservation campaign, he was getting his first book out, getting it published, getting it to press, organizing exhibitions with Richard Wonder at the Smithsonian on Church's work. So basically raising the reputation of the artists of the Hudson River School back up, starting that process. And we eventually get here to the culmination of that, which is the sale, or at least the first phase of the landmark in the rise of the reputation of the Hudson River School, which is the sale in 1973, I think it was, or 79, of icebergs, Church's great painting, which he titled The North during the Civil War, which sold to a donor for the Dallas Museum of Art. And there was a record price at auction, was $2.2 million, something like that. So we go in a span of 10 years from $100 to $2.2 million. And here's about the legislative work that was going on, another prong of Huntington's work with Sam Aldrich and other coalition in the region. And here we have Jim Hamilton, who was the original attorney for Huntington's group, Alana Preservation, Inc., along with I'm suddenly failing on the first name of the Osborne, who was so crucial to this fight as well. But they went side by side, Huntington and Aldrich and Mr. Osborne, to Bankers Trust, and were able, here's the iceberg story. Sorry, my narration is not exactly following the film. But, and they went to Bankers Trust, and they convinced them that, they needed to lease the house to this group or allow them the 18 months to raise the funds. I think you also, and this is a spin I would put on, I think you also have to give credit to the heirs of Sally Church that they did do that. They did give them at first a year. They did then give them 6 months. So they wanted to see them succeed. They did not believe they were going to succeed. Everything in the house was tagged for sale. And did an oral history with Elizabeth Aldrich, now Elizabeth Elliott, Sam's Graham's wife at the time, who was one of the volunteers taking people through the house. And she spoke actually about how effective it was that everything was tagged for sale when people were coming around, because they could actually palpably see that this was going to all go away, was all going to melt away. And now we're talking, you would hear me talking in a more organized way about what our vision is for Alana these days, which is as an economic generator of tourism, certainly in the area, but also as a fundamental, deeply rich cultural, educational resource for the residents and citizens of the area. And our school programs are a huge part of what we do, as well as our public programs. I'm going to reach for some props. And Parks is doing a great job with us, working on the capital side of things, keeping the house up. It's an incredibly valuable collection, but also incredible liability, just in terms of the commitment to conservation and preservation that there needs to be to maintain a site of this national significance. And this is the sort of, a new future for Alana. And I'll just take a few more minutes of your time to tell you a bit about that. And I think, given that I've done this, I may not use the PowerPoint, okay? So we can let that visual be, and I'll just end with a few comments here. One is, I'll pick up where I ended here. I just want to, on the table out there is our current brochure in a new format for our public and educational programs. And wait until you see the one for the spring, summer, and autumn that's about to just come out here in a few weeks. There's an incredible range of things happening at Alana. I think virtually every weekend you can come, and many weekdays, and you can find something for people of all ages and interest happening at Alana that expand upon Church's legacy there. And please come visit us. One thing that we're very excited about, and we coordinated this with Betsy and Cole, is the weekend of April 9th and 10th. We each have a speaker of national significance coming to the area. We have Andrea Wolf, whose new book, new biography of Alexander von Humboldt, is on the New York Times bestseller list, and she's starting her national tour for the book with us in Hudson at the Hudson High School Auditorium. So I encourage you to all come. It's really, Humboldt was central to Church's thought process, his art, and indeed our exhibition this summer is called Chasing the Cosmos, picking up on the title of Humboldt's great international bestseller of the 19th century that Church had a copy of, and that Church used to follow in Humboldt's footsteps on his 2 trips to the Andes to paint and to draw. And then I also want to say that the other great thing that we're doing as a partnership, and this is the private side of Alana working in concert with Parks, is that this year, in the 50th anniversary of the site, we are going to be introducing tours of the historic landscape that is so integral to the understanding and meaning of what Alana and Church are about. And those are going to be offered side by side with the tours of the historic house that Parks operates, and is operating at capacity with ever constrained operating funds, and I want to make that pitch here. It's so important that we help support the continued operations of our parks, and we're very grateful to the great work of our colleagues on the site, Kimberly Fluke, our historic site manager, stretching every single dollar into 115 pennies. And so we are proud, as a private sponsor, to be offering and able, through private support, to bring landscape tours to the site for now and into the future. This is not just a special 50th anniversary program. We have plenty of those happening. This is something we feel we are bringing after all the incredible work that Sarah and the partnership and our board has done in restoring the landscape at Olana, which is not complete yet, but has made incredible strides. And if you have not been there in the last 5 years, come. You can see views that have only been seen before that 75 or 100 years ago when Church was at the site. So the landscape tours being introduced this spring are made possible by our private donors. We raised a fund to help start this off at our gala in New York City last autumn, but also through grants, and I'm very appreciative of Parks and Trails for a grant that we recently received to be able to do the interpretive materials for that. I also have one last handout, and I will get off the podium, and if you are interested in learning more about the work that we've done over the time, there is a handout at the front table about everything the partnership does at Alana. Thank you.
Stay for a second. There may be some questions, comments. Okay. Well, this is
Barney.
Yes, sorry.
I just
James.
wanted to piggyback. The cover article for the Hudson River Valley Review for the spring will be on.
Thank you very much. Thank you for mentioning that. Yes, and I'm here in David's stead, and I want to express my great appreciation for him writing this wonderful new essay, really researching this history. It's going to be presented in the Hudson River Valley Review.
That was Colonel James Johnson, retired, who is the publisher of the
Hudson River Valley Review, sir.
And so, Sean, thank you very much. So one or 2 points you might do is that Betsy Jacks is too much of a lady to challenge you, but in fact, of course, there was this fellow named Cole, who is known somewhat as being the first and probably the most famous of the big three C's. You know, well, okay.
He laid the groundwork, certainly.
He not only laid the groundwork, he did the walking around work. He also lived just north of here, and you'll hear about that in a minute. And it's also easy to forget that a lot of this preservation work is private-public, and the public part is damned important. This is, in fact, a state historic site. But there is a private section, and that's what Sean is now the head of, and what Sarah was the first and most distinguished in all of our Hudson River Valley, not the most, one of the most distinguished. And that's very important. But there were people who made all of this happen. And one of them was Nelson Rockefeller. This wouldn't have happened. I can tell you, I was witty, right? It wouldn't have happened. Is that politics plays a little bit of a part. It wasn't just money. Money's easy. Politics is hard. And Nelson Rockefeller stood up and he was the one who said, let's save it. And of course the Rockefellers have done an enormous amount for historic properties in our valley, and we hope that they will continue. And you're a wonderful successor to Sarah, wherever you are. As it, well, she's in Florida, of course. Olana is one of the best examples of private-public partnership. And we hope it continues, and you're doing great stuff.
Much. Thank you.
All right.
May I share a story? It's a memory that I have of Olana. It probably goes back maybe 25 years ago. It was after the designation of the 16-mile historic district going from Tivoli south to the end of Hyde Park. And there was discussions about extending that historic district to Olana, to include Olana. And I remember being invited to Olana and taken up to the roof of Olana and looking south down along the Hudson. And it was just an incredible viewshed. There were also threats at that time of development that was proposed that would really impact that viewshed of Olana and the river. And I have to tell you, it was one of the most profound feelings that I experienced standing up at the rooftop of Olana. It was just magnificent, and I can remember tears coming down my eyes, and it's so wonderful that this film that will go public to people throughout the world, I hope, and to be able to experience that. It's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
But it wasn't exactly God who saved the view, for example. It was people like Dick Jenrette, who put up a ton of money to protect on the west side. The view, of course, from Olana, you've all seen it, know that, is really in many ways the west side of the Hudson. And it was Dick Jenrette of Donaldson, Lufkin, and Jenrette, and lots of other wonderful things, who organized a group to buy the land and just protect the viewshed with easements, among other things. And that's really important because, as said, that's not the sort of stuff the state does. This is a state historic site, and the state doesn't spend money for that sort of thing, unfortunately. But other people do. Any other questions or comments? That was a brilliant talk. Anything else? No? All right.
Thank you.
Okay, Betsy, where are you?
Here.
Okay. Now, Betsy Jacks will, as I said, she's too much of a lady to say that, to question the fact that the first important historic site of a Hudson River painter was your house. Actually, her house probably would be the first, wouldn't it? And you'll hear about that. Betsy Jackson's been a long-time member, and you've been Cole House for 10 years now? 12. Okay, well, you're great.
Thanks.
You've done wonderful stuff, and you've saved it, and so now, tell them.
Thank you, Barney. Well, we discourage and flatly reject any competition between our two sites. We are partners, and Thomas Cole and Frederick Church were great friends, and so that's the spirit in which we operate. So, got that?
It's a political year, right?
So, I wanted to talk briefly about another really great feel-good story. There's so much negative news around the world. It gets me down at night, but I'm reminded that this is a really great time for the Hudson Valley, that so much rebirth is happening here. So this is another good story. So this building was designed by Thomas Cole and used as his studio for the last years of his life. And during that time that Sean talked about, when historic preservation was really it hadn't really begun in this region, this building was torn down.
Just before it fell down, right?
Just before it fell down on its own, yes. It was in terrible disrepair, and the site had not yet become a museum. It was still in private hands. And Thomas Cole designed and built this in 1846, and he has a great quote on Christmas Day. I have to turn to read it, though. I am now sitting in my new studio, which is about completed, although the walls are not quite dry. I have promised myself much enjoyment and great success in the prosecution of my art, but I ought ever to bear in mind that the day cometh when no man can work. And Thomas Cole was always mindful of the passage of time and the preciousness of time. And unfortunately, he did die less than 2 years after this building was built. This is his home that was it's right across the lawn, about 75 yards from where the new studio stood. And that's me on the steps. Oh, okay. It's in Catskill. Barney wants me to tell you how to get there, which is a great idea. And it's only about 30 minutes north of here. So you just go straight north through Alana, take a left over the bridge, and we're right there. So as a reminder, this is what Thomas Cole's home looked like in the 1990s. So not so long ago, it too was about to fall down, but luckily wasn't torn down. And this is another building on the property, Thomas Cole's old studio. So the progression is that when Cole first arrived to the area in the 1820s and 1830s, he started renting a little cottage on the site for his studio. Then he married into this household and got to live at Cedar Grove in Catskill. And then he took a piece of this barn as his studio, which he considered a kind of a temporary painting room. As you can see, it's a very humble building. And he thought, well, I'll just move here for a little while until I can get a proper building built. But unfortunately, Cole never had two nickels to rub together and never was able to build a magnificent place until near the end of his life. So this ended up serving as his studio for 7 years. We did restore this in 2004. So I told you it was a good news story, right? All these buildings are coming back to life. And we've outfitted the interior of the old studio just as Cole would have left it. So we have his easels and his paintbrushes and all the things that he would have used. So when you walk in there, people say that that's where they really feel the presence of the artist the most. So the new studio, Thomas Cole started doodling designs for it and dreaming about it. This is one example of his drawings. And little known, actually, is that Cole was actually something of an architect. That's what he called himself. He said, he wrote to his friend Durand, "Did you know I am something of an architect?" So this is his design for the Ohio State Capitol, which, after much back and forth with other designs, was eventually adopted. And there it is. So the new studio, luckily, was very well documented. Artists sketched it. Here's a lovely little drawing by Jasper Cropsey. Frederick Church made a very detailed drawing of it. And also it was photographed because it only came down in 1973. So there was a lot of time for it to be photographed and documented. Here's one of the photographs from, we think, around 1920 or something, where it's starting to really lean to one side. You can see the porch is no longer straight. And this is another incredible photograph. Sean just told the story of David Huntington, who played such a role in saving Olana, really led the charge. Well, during one of those trips to Olana, he went across the bridge to see Thomas Cole's house and studio. And on that very day he was there, the new studio was being torn down. So here he is standing among the ruins of it. And his story he told was that he went over to the front door of the house where the Cole family descendants were still living and knocked on the door and said, "You have to stop this. You have to save this important building." And what he didn't realize at that time was that the Cole family had sold that plot of land and that building. They didn't own it. There was no way they could stop it. They had sold it to a family saying that they were going to turn it into a summer house. Well, instead of turning it into a summer house, they tore it down. And I can just see how this happened. The contractor came over and said, "Oh, forget about it. This is way too much work. It'd be much cheaper just to start over." So down it came. So fast forward, how many years later? 40 years later or so. And we did some archaeology and found the original foundation stones in the ground and conducted a whole phase of research about this building. Where exactly was it? Exactly what the size, the shape, the size, the width of the clapboards, everything about it, the pitch of the roof, the materials. We wanted to recreate this building exactly as Cole had designed it. And just to give you a little overview of where it was on the property, that's it on the right side of the property. So you can see it's just across the lawn from the main house. And then behind that, next to that large vegetable garden, kitchen garden area, is the old studio. So the three buildings form a kind of triangle. And I'll end on the happiest note of all. I'm pleased to announce that it has been reconstructed. Here it is. And it will have a grand opening celebration on May 1st. I've left a card on everybody, if I have more cards, if you didn't happen to get one. But we'd love for everyone to share in this happy moment with us when we cut the ribbon and enjoy this building. The inaugural exhibition inside will be on Thomas Cole's interest in architecture. And for the first time, this site will be able to bring and display Thomas Cole's major artworks. We have had a lot of Cole paintings in the house, but the house is not the perfect temperature and humidity that museums now require. Of course, we think it's quite ironic that Cole's paintings were just fine in there for hundreds of years, but now they're not allowed back in. So we have created a separate building that is the perfect climate for art with the best fire suppression system. And that was half the cost of the building, was all of these very accurate systems. So inside we will have some of Cole's greatest known works this summer. The foremost among them is his painting called The Architect's Dream, which is a painting that's usually in Toledo, and it's very rarely lent. So it'll be an opportunity to see it without going to Toledo. So I encourage you all to come, and thank you for this opportunity to tell this story. See you there.
You'll probably have some comments or questions.
Okay.
You've done wonderful work there. I can remember the first time the Noble Aldrich and I went up there, and this is, Betsy was in kindergarten at that time. And said, we're looking for the coal house. And this old guy said, well, he said, you go to the synagogue and go to the parking lot, and I think it's behind the parking lot. Right? It was, you've done it. This is, again, public-private partnership, because the coal house is a...
Well, we're affiliated with the National Park Service. And so it's a partnership between the National Park Service and we're a private nonprofit that runs it.
So that's public-private partnership again. A different one, but a really, really successful one. And you've done just incredible work.
Thank you. Well, it takes a village, so yeah. Thank you.
Betsy,
oh, wait.
Just say one word about the extraordinary...
You never say one word, Winnie.
Yes.
This was his inspiration.
That's right. Wint is so correct. So there was this very remarkable man named Ray Beecher who was the Greene County historian. I think he was involved with the Greene County Historical Society for 50 years. And he took a liking to this place, the coal house, and when it was in that picture I showed you where it looks like it was about to fall down, and really led the charge. And I think every preservation story has a hero. Someone has to really devote the time to say, I'm not going to let this happen. And so he was the man for the Thomas Cole House. And he passed away now about 6 years ago. And in his will, he left $1 million to the Thomas Cole House, and $350,000 of that was earmarked for the new studio. And that became the go-ahead for us. We thought, okay, with that, we'll have the courage to launch a capital campaign. It takes that first gift to get it going. So in so many ways, he saved this historic site.
It's also of interest that while Sean has a house full of pictures, when Betsy got there were no coals. Right?
Yeah, well, it was.
You've got 3, right?
Well, it was interesting when I arrived. They had a few coal paintings, but you didn't know they were coals. They were just sort of hanging, on the side by the front door. And I thought, that's a little too easy to steal. I think I'll put those upstairs. But there were a lot of coal objects that were around in the basement, in the attic, and people started giving back their things. And now the house is quite full of the original coal material. So we're delighted.
They couldn't sell theirs, but your guy did, right? That's what you're saying.
Well, yes, unfortunately there was an auction and sale of a lot of the coal paintings. And I think our two stories are linked, that when the Thomas Cole House contents were sold, it helped raise the alarm that this happens. This is not just in theory. This actually happens. And it helped the cause of saving Olana from having the same fate.
Of course, he didn't build your house. When was that house built?
The Thomas Cole House was built in 1815, and we've just discovered some amazing research that Thomas Cole, when he moved in 1836, he completely redesigned the interior and also painted, hand-painted borders in the parlors, and really, so we just uncovered it last year. We behind the layers of paint, we found the original painting, and we're in the process of restoring that as well. That's next year's announcement, 2017.
Well, you're a Hudson Valley treasure.
Thank you.
Nancy, thank you very much. Now, we go back to the Conservancy, don't we? Yes.
Just a minute.
You're on.
Okay, so now we're going to move into the business portion of the meeting. And the next item on our agenda is to review and to adopt the minutes of our last board meeting, which was held on January 14th, just a few miles up the road. And so these are the combined minutes of that meeting. And I wanted to know if there were any questions or comments about the minutes before we make a motion to adopt them. Okay, so I'd like to call for a motion to adopt the minutes. Okay, Sally first, second. Okay, Jane, thank you. So we've got that. Everyone in favor of adopting the minutes, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so the minutes are adopted. This is again for the January 14th meeting. Now we also, I guess, are moving toward the Grants Committee approval. So that needs to happen now too. Since we had a call about this last week, we want to now formally adopt those minutes. So this is for the Grants Committee meeting that we had on March 17th. Bob motions second from that call?
I'll second.
Okay, thanks, Cindy. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. So those are adopted as well. So we are officially in the books. Okay, so now moving to the Greenway Conservancy portion of the agenda, we have a few items that we want to review, and for those, Mark is going to walk us through the details, but they basically are about the fiscal year budget, trail gap analysis, a water trail update from Scott, which will be great, and also then we're going to move toward authorizing the application for the monitoring grant. So, Mark?
Great. Thanks, Jim. You're so easy to work with already. This is great. Just really quickly, the proposed state budget right now includes $166,000 for the Greenway Conservancy that supports operations. And this year, thankfully, the governor included a proposal to include $250,000 for Greenway trail grants. That's an unprecedented amount, and it was included in the executive budget, so we really applaud the governor for his vision to realize the value of our small grants and support trail development in the Hudson River Valley. The Assembly has also continued that, and we just hope that the final...
Also, before we go too far, say that that is really due entirely to Rose Harvey, who is the, as you know, the Parks Committee, the most successful Parks Commissioner here in New York State, because she goes back to on the Greenway to the original notion of trails, and that's so we owe it. Thank you, Rose, wherever you are today.
And that is a perfect segue into the next topic, our Hudson River Greenway Trail Gap Analysis. As the chairman mentioned, it was Commissioner Harvey's idea to build a trail from New York City to the Capital District on both sides of the Hudson River. The last time we took a look at that trail corridor was 2004. A lot's happened in trails in the Hudson Valley since 2004. Walkway over the Hudson, rail trails, miles of trails have been developed. So we all thought it was a great time to take a look at that issue again. Since we met last, we've hired Alta Planning and Design, working with Behan Planning out of Saratoga County. They're undertaking a GIS analysis of all the trail networks in the Hudson River Valley at the moment. We have convened a stakeholder committee who's advising on the process and also contributing additional GIS data for that analysis. We'll be doing robust stakeholder and public engagement to let people and larger community of stakeholders weigh in on that trail route. So more to come in the spring and summer on that project. And now I'd like to ask Scott Keller to give us an update on the Hudson River Greenway Water Trail project.
Thank you, Mark. Well, as you can see behind me, we're starting to make progress. This is the beta version of our website, which we hope to launch. And this photo is the one that we're using on everything. It's our branding photo. You've already seen our water trail guide, which came out last June. We now have proofs of our 4-map series, which this is the side the kayakers will like, because it has all the sites. And this is the side where we're going to suck them in and make them go visit Olana and the Coal House and everywhere else. And each of the maps has 3 different topics on it. This one just happens to have great estates, iconic fishes, and iconic boats. We have a couple with, we have one with Rev War history and the Great Chains. We also have on each one a legacy industry. This one, because the fishes are on here, happens to be commercial fishing. We also have brick making, ice making. What's the 4th one?
Do you want to pass a couple of those around?
And canal building, yes.
Scott?
Yes.
When will they be available? I assume they're for sale?
They will be for sale. A full set will cost $36.95. Individual maps will be $9.95. And they will be available for sale, we hope, the week before Memorial Day. We are hoping to get them into the outfitters' hands so they can push them to the paddlers coming in to buy new equipment for the season or to rent boats because they want to take a trip on Memorial Day. So, and we are using actually the same printer that New York, New Jersey Trail Conference uses. They will be on Tyvek. They will be much thinner than this. They will come in a 4-pack set, and they will be inside a Ziploc plastic bag. And so they'll be waterproof. They'll be foldable to sit on the deck of the kayak. This will fit into the kayak. And this will be, there'll be a mobile version of that. It's a mobile website, so it does come up on your phone, and you can use everything, including the plan your trip feature.
And I would just like to tell everyone here to save the date, May 25th, for a launch event for the maps and the website. We're looking at Kingston right now for that event, but Kingston doesn't know that, so we'll follow up with all of you as we get closer.
Scott, you might see if there's any questions or comments about I've said this before, but I can't say it too often. But for Scott Keller, there would not be a water trail. He came up with the idea. And Governor Pataki funded it with one big grant. Right?
One big grant.
And is that the end of your...
That is, unless people have questions.
And I would just like to mention that this project was funded through a $90,000 grant from Empire State Development through its I Love New York Tourism Grant Program.
That would be for the maps and the website. The guidebook we funded through other means.
All right, next on the agenda is authorization application for the Hudson River National Estuarine Research Reserve, just in case anybody didn't know what those initials stood for. Monitoring grant. So Scott, do you want to give just a little bit concise update about what that grant's for? It represents our continuing partnership with the National Estuarine Research Reserve on their work.
The Research Reserve does research and monitoring programs at each of their 4 sites up and down the Hudson, Stockport Flats, Tivoli Bays, Iona Island, and Piermont Marshes. For the this will be the 20th year we have hosted a grant for them. We get 10% of the grant as a fee for hosting it, which is cheaper for them than going anywhere else. And they do really good research and monitoring on what's going on the river. And they work with a lot of different groups and on other research projects up and down the river.
Thanks, Scott.
All right, so given that grant, I'd like to call for a motion to accept that grant from our Conservancy board members. Do I have a motion to accept that grant from someone on the Conservancy? Betsy? And a second? Okay, Jane, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so the application for the grant is accepted. Terrific. And I think that concludes the Conservancy portion of our meeting today, which was just tremendous. And smooth transition, I guess, from Sarah. So we're happy about that. And now we turn it over to the Community Council and my partner, Barney McHenry.
Thank you. Is it all right? We'll call the meeting to order, which I just have. Now, mark the budget for 2000. Wait a minute, for 16-17. That's right, because the budget year for New York State is September.
The New York State budget year is April 1st to March 31st, is the state fiscal year.
All right, okay. You want to go over that?
Sure. The proposal this year for the Greenway Council is the same as it was last year, $321,000 to support operations and grants. It includes $136,000 for our local assistance grants, which we'll be hearing about in a moment.
That's a ton of money, considering that we thought we were going to be zeroed out 3 years ago, right?
It only seems like 3 years ago.
I shouldn't Okay. Now let's go into the part with the reason we got this audience here is because you're giving away Greenway grants. This is, Mark, you got, was it 27,400 to 4, okay.
All right, thank you, Chairman. As the Chairman mentioned, it's always you always have a guarantee to have a packed house when you give away money, so I thank all the grantees for showing up today. The first grant in our Hudson River Valley Greenway Grant Program awards today is to the City of Albany for a Washington Avenue Intensive Cultural Level Survey. The neighborhood is in transition. There's a couple significant developments that are happening, and this project is going to be led by the Historic Albany Foundation. So Susan Holland is here to say a few words about the project.
Stay here. Great. I'm Susan Holland. I'm the executive director, and on behalf of the City of Albany as well, Erin Glennon is here with me, and she's the new preservation planner. So we welcome her to Albany. And we just want to thank the Committees Council for this award. And I have to say, I love being in this room with so many like-minded individuals. Sometimes when we're out there in the field, we're all alone. You feel all alone with us in the city. So this is really wonderful. And it's also nice to see all the awardees and for the board to actually see the awardees as well. I really like that idea. So I encourage you, we'll have some public projects around, or public events around after we finish our survey. And this is a survey that's in addition to a more contentious survey that was done a couple years ago, and we're going to be putting those together so that we do have a new historic district. And one of our main concerns about the new historic district and getting Albany more preservation ready is to use the state rehabilitation tax credits. They're a wonderful resource when capital money is so hard to come by, and lots of projects are being done in Albany this way. So we're just getting it ready. And I'd also like to invite all of you. We have a statewide preservation conference that's going to take place May 5th through the 7th. Mark is actually is going to be one of the panelists for one of the events. Yeah, he just and I think a couple people here are also doing it. Yeah, I was just going to say Scott's going to be there. So we encourage you, and you can you can see it on Facebook and on our website at historic-albany.org, and it'll be all over the place. And it's taking place in Albany and Troy. We're doing a cross-county conference, so I encourage you all to come. And it's called Preservation at 50 because the National Preservation Act is also 50 years old this year. So thank you. Thank you again to the council.
Thank
Appreciate
you so much,
it.
Susan. That grant is for $4,900 to the City of Albany. The next one is to the City of Kingston across the river, and it's for a similar project. When people think about Kingston, they think about the Rondout District or the Uptown Stockade District, but nobody really thinks about Midtown. And this is a study that's going to focus on Midtown. It's a neighborhood in transition. Parts of Kingston are gentrifying, but yet there's parts of Kingston like Midtown that is a high needs and multicultural district, and this study will help address planning for that district and future investments. Anybody here from the City of Kingston? Great. That grant is for $7,500. The next grant is to the town of Phillipstown, down in Putnam County. This is for the Phillipstown Depot Theater. The Depot Theater has become a cultural anchor for Phillipstown. And we have here today Gretchen Dykstra, who can say a few words about the project.
Thanks very much. I'm happy to be representing the Depot Theater. Oh, thank you. I'm happy to be representing the Depot Theater as a board member. We are celebrating our 20th anniversary this year. For those of you who don't know it, we are in a historic railroad station. We have 67 seats, and last year we had 100 performances, from classical music to live musicals to plays to play readings to documentary films. This will help us plan the outdoor capital improvement project. We've just finished an interior capital improvement. This will help us plan for the outside. We're extremely thankful, and thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. We heard a lot about the landscape, having presentations on Hudson River School painters. And our next grant to the town of Red Hook is one that's going to help them preserve the landscape moving forward. It's for an update to their community preservation plan. It's a required update by the legislature. The Community Preservation Act allows communities like Red Hook to preserve land in their communities. Supervisor Bob McCoon is here to speak a little bit about the project.
Thanks, Mark. First of all, I'd like to say thank you on behalf of the town of Red Hook. We're repeat recipients of Greenway grants, and we've had great success because of the partnership we have with you, and I see other organizations here, Scenic Hudson, Dutchess Land Conservancy, Winnicke, the County of Dutchess. Years ago, in 2007, the town of Red Hook decided to put forward to our residents the concept of initiating a real estate transfer fee to establish a community preservation fund. And at that time, it was put up for a vote with the help of organizations like the Land Trust Alliance and Scenic Hudson. We were successful in that effort. And so we established this fund. We put forth a project for public input, and passed the project plan listing all the properties that would be eligible for these funds. And it's been enormously successful. It's added to our Purchase of Development Rights program, which we established back in 2003. We have now, with the help of the federal government, the state, the county, wonderful organizations like yours, protected over 4,500 acres within the township, most of it being working landscapes, which are very near and dear to our hearts in the town of Red Hook, about 15 miles north of here on Route 9. We are, as Mark said, required by law to update that plan and get public input on the projects, and we're happy to do that today with your assistance as with these grant fees. In particular, we look to include some of those riverfront properties in the project plan update, and we are also now taking a look at some protection for our streams, the Sauk Hill. I see Laura Heedy over here, who has been helpful in the project that you are now funding with these dollars. I would also like to say on behalf of the town of Red Hook that the grants that you have given us have made an enormous amount of difference. 4 years ago, we first applied for some funds to enact zoning to protect the National Historic Landmark District. I'm happy to say just 2 weeks ago, after years of work and working with the public, we did in fact pass legislation. We now are able to take a look at and approve any construction, any alteration, and any demolition within this very long and significant federal district. So thank you again. Keep up the great work, and look forward to seeing you in a couple of years.
Thank you, Supervisor. And that grant's for $10,000.
I need a motion. These 4 grants of $27,400, I guess, were approved at the Grants Committee. We have a Grants Committee. All members of the Grants Committee were present by phone St. Patrick's Day last week, and now and they approved these 4 grants, and now I ask for approval by the full board. May I have a motion?
I happily move.
All right, yes, thank you. That, Bob, is that your hand? All right. Okay, anyway, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, thank you very much. We talk about private-public, this is public-public money. And, now we go into the heritage area, and we have a good long list there, Mark, and let's go right along on that. You see, is there anything first on that? No. So this is the Hudson River Valley National Heritage Area grants, and this is a ton of money, and we never thought we were going to get it, but it's been coming in, and it shows that you do great work.
Well, thank you, Chairman. And I'd like to just mention that the Greenway is a partner with the National Park Service in managing the Hudson River Valley National Heritage Area. It's one of 49 national heritage areas across the country. Right now in Washington, our congressional delegation, including our senators, are advocating to the Appropriations Committee to ensure that a 50% cut is going to be restored. We have 100% support from all of our members of Congress in that, including 2 letters sent by Senator Gillibrand and Senator Schumer to the Senate Appropriations Committee to support that increase. Because were it not for those funds, these grants would not be possible. So we definitely appreciate their support with that. Our Heritage Development Grant Program was started, I think, back in 2010, and it was really created to support 2 things, marketing and interpretation. So telling the story and letting people know that you're telling the story. These are not large grants, but yet they provide catalytic support for our variety of partners and hopefully help knit together the story of the Hudson River Valley National Heritage Area. So without any further ado, I'll start announcing the grant awards. The first grant recommended by the Grants Committee is to the Albany Institute for History and Art. It's celebrating this year its 225th anniversary. It was founded when George Washington was president, so significant cultural institution in New York State. This grant is to document their fantastic Capital Region in 50 Objects exhibit, which is currently on view at the Albany Institute. It was a crowdsourced exhibition that features objects that tell the story of the Capital District. And this grant would be for documentation of that exhibit so it's accessible for future generations. That grant is for $4,000. I don't believe anybody's here from Albany Institute. The next grant is to the Dorsky Museum at SUNY New Paltz across the river. This is for the Hudson Valley Visual Art Collections Consortium Online Exhibition Pilot Project. I know Sarah Pasty is here, and she can say a few words about the project.
I'm so grateful to the National Heritage Area, and just the words you said, catalytic support, are exactly what this grant is, this grant for our digital project. In June of 2015, 5 organizations in the Hudson Valley, in the greater New Paltz, Woodstock area, the Dorsky Museum, Women's Studio Workshop, Woodstock Birdcliff Guild, Woodstock Artists Association and Museum, and the Center for Photography at Woodstock launched a digital website that shows works from all of our collections. That was last year. And once we launched it, we realized that we needed a way to draw attention to it and to allow educators and curators to begin to assemble online exhibitions from that collection so that we could start promoting it, so educators could go into local schools and talk about the works that we have in our collections. And this pilot project is going to create that online exhibition platform, and we're going to use it, first of all, in our first iteration, to repurpose a wonderful project that we did 5 years ago called Linking Collections, Building Connections. And at that point, we had mounted an exhibition, created an exhibition catalog, which the National Heritage Area also funded. That catalog has since sold out. So we are going to mount an online exhibition to showcase these works. Then once we have the platform, the online platform, we'll then be able to continue to organize exhibitions that people can go to our website and see. So thank you very much. We're very grateful.
Thank you, Sarah.
Sarah, did Mark tell you that that's just going to be supplemented by an anonymous grant of $1,000, which will bring you up to the amount of money that you wanted. So that's really good.
Thank you, Chairman. The next grant is really a kind of project that we've always wanted to see in the marketing category for this grant program, and it's to Dutchess Tourism to create a distinctly Dutchess Great Estates Pass. Mary Kay Verba, our great partner, the director of Dutchess County Tourism, is here to say a few words about the project.
Thank you so much, Mark. We really appreciate you using the seed money to help us get this off the ground. As you said, it's been talked about for years, how we can have one coordinated pass that a person could buy to come to see our historic sites. And so we've got 6 or 7 partners involved with this. We're just dotting the I's and crossing the T's. We hope to announce all the details on May 5th at our tourism showcase day at the Grandview, brochure exchange from 10 to 12, and then our luncheon and our awards luncheon. So we invite you all to come. But this pass, I think, will be a highlight. It's something I think that will be good for not only the domestic market, but also locals as well as the international visitors. Thank you.
Absolutely. It's great. One of the things we try to do in the National Heritage Area is to combine education and particularly place-based education with the sites that are around us, our historic sites, in particular our environmental locations. And the next grant to the Friends of Claremont is a project that does just that. It's Harvesting History, the Teaching Garden at Claremont. This project will engage students from the Hudson City School Districts in something that's really engaging. And I know Ted Sott is here from the Friends of Claremont to say a few words about the project.
I'd actually like to hand it over to Susan.
Oh, and Susan Baudreau, the director of Claremont. Thanks, Ted.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank the Greenway and the Heritage Area so much for their continuing support of this program. What we've done is we actually have Leslie Reed, our garden educator, who is coordinating this program at Claremont. We've started
to expand on our agriculture history at Claremont, which is part of our mission. We've, in a kitchen garden by one of our cottages that was a resident of Hagnoria, Livingston McVitie, we've started a garden where children from the Hudson City School District and the Hudson Department of Youth, and expanding that to include this year Germantown summer programs, will come and learn about where food comes from and the history of agriculture in the region, which I think most students in the area have no idea about. And then we take it one step further. We cook with the kids. We talk about healthy eating and about using the resources that we have to grow, and then children take home the produce as well. So it's kind of a well-rounded program. We're also in partnership with Cornell Cooperative Extension, so the children also become members of 4-H, and and we talk about that and about how we can continue this cycle in the Hudson Valley as agriculture is disappearing in the Hudson Valley. And I think also just about getting kids outside. I mean, we know that most children in the area don't have an opportunity. So in this after-school program, they're outside, they're exercising, they're planting, they're getting in touch with nature again, and they're also learning about healthy eating and cooking, and able to, in an area where food insecurity in both Greene County and Columbia County is an issue for children. So I think we're ticking off a lot of boxes and really connecting to our mission and reaching out to audiences that we have not reached out to in the past. So I'm really excited, and thank you so much for this grant to allow us to continue this program.
Great.
Thanks.
Congratulations, Susan. Certainly is a multifaceted project that provides students with experiences and memories that last a lifetime. As many of you know, I was married to my wife at Claremont, and while I was exploring things at my wedding, it was mainly where to find the next glass of bourbon, but still, those are memories that last a lifetime for me.
That's very nice.
Yeah, it was. The next grant is to the Friends of FDR State Park. This is to develop an FDR State Park history trail. Again, this combines recreation with history. This is going to provide some interpretation about the advent of the park. Richard Fisher is here from the Friends Group. And Richard, would you care to say a few words about the project?
I just wanted to say thank you very much, and to introduce Diane Press, who has done a tremendous amount of archival and historical research that will be used for our trails.
Our Friends Group started in 2011, and within the last 5 years, we have uncovered so much forgotten history, from the Revolutionary War to a New York State insane asylum to...
You sure that's not in Albany?
To the Civilian Conservation Corps camp of World War I vets. We have hundreds of thousands of urban visitors coming to our park, along with locals, that we can now share this rich, forgotten history. So thanks to this grant, we can put up the interpretive signs. And also thanks to this grant, all this research won't be lost. So from a small group to, in a big park, our sincere thanks.
Congratulations. And that reminds me that one of the priorities this year for our grants program was diversity. It resonates with the goals of the National Park Service's Find Your Park campaign and the Centennial Goals. And that project is one that will connect with tens of thousands of people from metropolitan New York City, diverse audiences. And the same thing can be said about the Claremont grant and a few others in this list. The next grant is to the Friends of Fort Craylow. They are expanding on a successful project that tells the story of African-American history within the Dutch colonial days in the Capital District and beyond. The project is called African Culture in the Dutch Atlantic World. It's part of a program series. With this grant, they're going to take their exhibit, which is currently on display at Fort Craylow, out to a larger audience. And wearing a few hats today, Susan Holland is also going to say a few words about this project.
Hi. In the City of Albany, we also have a group called Partners for Albany Stories. Historic Cherry Hill is a member of that as well. And it was a group of us formed about 5 or 6 years ago to when the historic sites and the parks were being closed by the state, and we formed together, thought we better get our act together, and so we've been able to, we're working on an interpretive plan for the city, and Fort Craylow actually, because they're in Rensselaer County, but they're part of the group as well, and Heidi couldn't be here today, so I said I would fill in for her, and she just wanted to thank you very much for the grant, and it would help her to do also Craylow Fest, which is a 3-part series featuring African American culture, history and art, African American hearth cooking on the open hearth at Craylow and Pinkster Fest, and also for their exhibition called The Dishonorable Trade, Human Trafficking in the Dutch Atlantic World, about slavery during the Dutch colonial period, which is really being discovered right now. And I mean, there's a lot of scholars, but really bringing it to the public. And they will also, they had a wonderful article in the Albany Times-Union if you want to read about it and get more information. So she thanks you for this. And the Friends of Fort Craylow do.
Congratulations. The next grant is to the Friends of Philip C. Manor Hall. This is another grant that connects with the diversity theme. They're going to be exploring the history of immigration in Yonkers. They're going to be working backwards from the most recent immigrants back to earlier iterations of immigrants. So they're going to be reaching out to the immigrant community and engaging them in their stories and telling their stories to a larger population. So is Shannon Doherty here, still here? Shannon, would you like to say a few words about the project?
I'm a board member on the Friends of Phillips Manor Hall, and I'd like to thank you all for considering this grant for us. We are in the very downtown center of Yonkers, which has undergone an enormous amount of change in the last few years. I don't know if any of you have been there in a while, but we have a beautiful park across the street from Phillips Manor Hall, Vanderdonk Park. That's part of the daylighting of the Sawmill River. The science barge is just down the street. BZAC Environmental Center is only a few minutes away. And we are really making a concerted effort to bring the people who live in our neighborhood of Phillips Manor Hall into the house. And so we are hoping that with this exhibit, the first part of the exhibit starts in 1945 to the present, and we are collecting oral histories from immigrants and the children of immigrants, which will be sort of the main part of this first stage. And this grant is going to help us to increase the number of oral histories that we can obtain, and also the equipment to show the videos once we get them, and marketing for the exhibit. And we're very excited because over the next 3 years, the exhibit will expand back to Frederick Phillips and the Dutch immigration. And I have to say, I grew up in Yonkers. Most of my friends where I grew up, a lot of my friends actually were the children of immigrants. I had lots of friends whose parents were from Ireland, Italy, Poland, the Ukraine, and my children went to high school in Yonkers, and their friends are from India, Pakistan, Bosnia, Egypt, and it's just so exciting to live in Yonkers, a place where we have so much culture and so many shared experiences around this idea of immigration, and a way to pull the people who live there now and who have lived there for generations, the families who have been there generations, together in this shared experience. So thank you very much for considering us.
Thank you, Shannon. Congratulations. You don't have to be a history nerd to know that this year is the year of Alexander Hamilton. Hamilton was married at Schuyler Mansion in Albany. And this next grant is to the Friends of Schuyler Mansion to create a really interesting curated experience of their interiors. It's going to allow people to change what they're looking at and redesign interiors on the fly. Susan's also here, third hat today, to talk a little bit about the Schuyler Mansion project.
Are you all tired of hearing from me already? I was going to say, so the Friends of Schuyler Mansion, it's also run by Heidi Hill as part of that. She's the director at Schuyler Mansion, and again, she couldn't be here, so she just wanted to thank you very much for the award. And this is going to be a really fun project for all ages. They're going to use a tablet platform with digital software to actually design what's in the best parlor in Schuyler Mansion. So they're getting ready to do some restoration, but at the same time they want to get some information from the public. So you'll be able to do your drapes, your wallpapers, and the appropriate, obviously, in the period of time. But I think it'll be a great hook for them to have lots and lots of people come to visit, and a unique experience. So thank you again to the council. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. The next grant is to the Friends of Old Croton Aqueduct. Old Croton Aqueduct is a marvel of engineering. Previously, most interpretation at the Old Croton Aqueduct either had to happen outside or in the aqueduct itself, which was kind of challenging. So this project is going to support additional interpretation amenities in the newly restored Keeper's House. I know Mavis Kane is here. Would you care to say a few words about the project, Mavis?
We have a long relationship with the Greenway. I think the first grant we got from them was in 1999 for signage, and then again in 2009 for help with the entrance to the Keeper's House. And I'm happy to tell you all that we now have certificate of occupancy. We can actually go inside this house that we raised $1,200,000 to restore. And we are going now on to phase 2. We call phase 1 was the capital campaign to save the house from falling apart. One of the columns was about to fall into the Hudson River when we took it over. And we now have an alive house that's just ready to receive the public. So the grant that we are so happy to receive from the Heritage is for the interpretation panels, because we've discovered that even in our area, many of the school kids don't know anything about the fact that the aqueduct saved New York City from pestilence, disease, drunkenness, and bad smells. And so we have been working with designers and very grateful for Peebles Island help in making displays, touch screen things, which I'm amazed cost a pile of money to do a little touch screen that tells the history of the aqueduct. But the grant from this group is going to be particularly for the interpretive panels. And the panels will tell the whole story from back to the 1830s when the city was so filthy and when the aqueduct came in and saved it all. There were 4 panels, and we're delighted to have that little introduction to the story. It's all being prepared now and will eventually be installed in June, and we'll open the doors to the public, everybody to come in. So we are very grateful for the opportunity to tell this story, a National Historic Landmark. So many people don't know we even have one in the area. So thank you very much, and it's been a wonderful relationship. We want it to continue.
Thank you, Mavis. Congratulations. So Mavis talked about building a coalition to save a building, and Betsy talked about building a coalition to save a building, and Sean talked about that also. Somebody who I worked with to build a coalition to save a building is Lizelle LaFrance, who runs Historic Cherry Hill in Albany, and she is leading the way on this next grant project called Growing a Community, Albany's Farming and Gardening History. Cherry Hill does a great job not only convening a coalition as their members and leaders and the partners for Albany Stories that Susan mentioned, but also at engaging students in the neighborhood around them. So Lizelle, would you like to say a few words about the project?
Yes. Thank you very much for your support. Historic Cherry Hill served as the applicant on behalf of 5 member organizations of Partners for Albany Stories, including Historic Albany Foundation, Cralo and Schuyler Mansion State Historic Sites, and Shaker Heritage Society. We will be doing a whole series of garden, landscape, and agricultural events for the public for really diverse audiences that will begin on May 1st with the 17th Annual Albany History Fair and run right through September with Cralo's Harvest Fair. And this is a promotion grant, so we'll really be able to reach a large and very diverse audience with your support. So thank you very much.
Congratulations, Lizelle. The next grant is to the Hudson Highlands Land Trust. This is to support marketing for the 2016 Take a Hike program. The Take a Hike program combines recreation and history. Our board member, Annie Chamar, is obviously the head of the Hudson Highlands Land Trust. And while he did not vote or review this grant application, he's thankfully here to talk a little bit about the project.
Well, thank you very much to the Greenway and the community and National Heritage area. We every year put on a hike program, and this year we're happy to have a portion of the cost of our marketing and materials underwritten through this generous grant. One of the hikes that we do is in the Hudson River Valley Ramble in September, and that'll be listed in the hike brochure and the map that's accompanying it. Thanks. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Andy. Congratulations.
We also should say hail and farewell, right?
Not quite yet, Barney. I'll be at the next one.
Not quite yet. One more meeting?
I got one more.
All right, Colonel. We'll wait.
Thank you.
I did miss a grant in the list, and the grant is to historic Huguenot Street. There have been lots of improvements to the interpretive experience at Huguenot Street. It's one of the most intact 17th and 18th century places that you can visit. You can pull off the highway and literally almost drive down a street that you would have seen in the 18th century. It's amazing. And this project is to support reinventing the visitor experience. And I know that we have Shane Stewart here from Historic Huguenot Street. Hopefully you can say a few words about the project. Well, we won't hold it against them. They saw the most interesting parts of the meeting, but they weren't here to say a few words about the project. Anyway, it's a great project. They're going to engage stakeholders in the community and try to tell a more relevant story, which are things that we try to support. Wint Aldrich mentioned Henry Diamond as somebody who was instrumental in laying the foundation for the Greenway. I mentioned our members of Congress. Were it not for their support, these grants wouldn't be possible. But some would also say that Meg Downey's coverage of the Greenway's creation, we wouldn't be here today to award these grants. And it's with great pleasure that we award this next grant to the Northeast Historical Society for our Millerton Main Street Historic District. And Meg Downey is here representing the group to say a few words about the project.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure just being here today because I've passionately cared about the Greenway since before the Greenway began. So it's terrific. One thing about Millerton is it's a very small town, but but it always has been a large economic engine in northeastern Dutchess County. It was a place where 3 railroads once met, connecting New England to New York and places west. And it still has a lot of that 19th century heritage in its architecture if you walk downtown. And now the railroad era is represented by the Harlem Valley Rail Trail, which you all have supported, and we're very grateful for that. However, we've never been able to really publicly tout the wonderful history we have. And so this walking tour brochure of the historic district in Millerton will really make a difference, not only telling our story, but also really bringing about strengthening our preservation efforts, because people will see all in one place. There's so much rich history there. So I just want to thank so much the Greenway and the Hudson River Valley Heritage Area, all of you, for all your continued efforts and for letting a small historical society, which doesn't have a lot of resources, really see this come to life. So we appreciate that so much.
Congratulations. The next grant certainly promotes partnerships. It involves a really good partnership between the Putnam History Museum and the Constitution Island Association, and it's to tell an important story. Some would see these folks as crazy spinsters that squirreled themselves away in an island, but I think it's much more than that. And here to talk about the project is Mindy Krasmian from the Putnam History Museum.
Hi, thank you, Mark. We're so grateful to accept this grant award to develop an exhibition in partnership with Constitution Island Association called The World of Anna and Susan Warner. And it's going to be an exhibition about their time on Constitution Island and their literary history. Our partners, the Constitution Island Association, are celebrating their centennial this year. And this comes at a time when there are new efforts underway on Constitution Island. Constitution Island is located in the Hudson River between Phillipstown and West Point. It is owned and managed by West Point. There's a friends group, Constitution Island Association, who manages the collections associated with that site. And there's a lot of exciting things happening at that site for their centennial. And this exhibition will be a piece of that. The exhibition will be on view at the museum in the fall. And the Warner sisters did indeed, in addition to being, we'll call them eccentric, they have a tremendous literary history in the 19th century. They lived on the island starting in 1838, and Susan died in 1885, and Anna died in 1915. And Susan wrote the first best-selling novel of the 19th century in 1850. It was called The Wide, Wide World. And Anna, in 1872, wrote a very popular gardening book called Gardening by Myself. She's also famous for writing the hymn, Jesus Loves Me. And together, they published 89 books. So the Constitution Island Association maintains an archive of their manuscripts, personal papers, drawings, a great treasure trove of material. and also they maintain a collection of their furniture. So we, as a history museum, are so excited to partner with them and really research and create a first major exhibition from this collection. So we're really excited to be doing that. I also just wanted to say, in addition to that, to thank the Greenway and the Hudson River Valley National Heritage Area, because grants for marketing and interpretation for ambitious, small historical organizations are very hard to come by. And these grants are filling a real need. I've seen the funding landscape for our organization change quite a bit in the 11 years that I've been in the organization, and we wouldn't be able to do special projects like this without your support. In 2014, you also funded a special project of ours to reinterpret our West Point Foundry Gallery. We're located right adjacent to the West Point Foundry site in Cold Spring. And because of your grant, we had a tremendous opportunity to offer not only new research, but to tell the exhibit in exciting new ways. And, you know, the objects that we work so hard to preserve, they need the opportunity to be interpreted and to share our stories. These grants are the way that we're able to do that, so thank you. And I hope you'll come by the museum when we open in May, because we are adding to the exhibition that we opened last year, we're adding a parrot gun. We received a donation of a real parrot gun that was produced at the Foundry, and we just had it conserved, so we're excited to add that piece. Thanks again.
Thanks, Mindy. Congratulations. And for those of you who have envisioned like a parrot with a gun, a parrot gun is actually a large cannon that was made at the West Point Foundry. Very innovative piece of artillery. The next grant, well, at the Heritage Area, we're all about partnerships, and we try to sort of ride the coattails of big projects so that the spread effects of attracting people here will be meaningful for all of our partner sites. And this next grant for marketing and promotion for the Thomas Cole's new studio is just that type of project. And we heard from Betsy Jack, so Betsy is here. Would you like to say a few words about it?
It's your door prize, Betsy.
I think, no, I think I said a lot. Actually, no, thank you. We have the new studio project, the total campaign is $1.5 million, and we're $60,000 short. So everybody log on, thomascole.org, give your last bit. So the marketing piece is really important. We want to make sure that people know about it, so thank you.
Great. Thanks, Betsy. I was just at this next grantee's Stephen and Harriet Myers residence in Albany last week for their housewarming project. Due to the, I think, efforts of Mary Liz Stewart, who is here, and her husband Paul, they secured a donation from a local plumbing contractor to put a furnace and heat in the building. It's the first time we've been able to have warmth in the building, so it's appropriate for a housewarming, Mary Liz. This project also connects very well with our diversity emphasis this year. It's to create a Underground Railroad history project, youth experience in the Underground Railroad, and its relevance today. They have a great new interpretive and education lead there. And Mary Liz, would you like to say a few words about what you're doing at the Underground History Project?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you very much on behalf of Underground Railroad History Project for the awarding of this particular grant. It will be very significant for us. We really are the new kids on the block as an organization. We incorporated in 2003, actually as an outgrowth of a personal research project in which my husband and I were engaged. And it was a project that intended to serve very small audiences, but as we engaged with historic documents, primary sources from the antebellum period, we were uncovering accounts and voices of people who had not been written into the standard canon of Underground Railroad history. And we felt that this was a very necessary story to share publicly. We felt it belonged to the public. So we formed a nonprofit and proceeded forward from there. Life has not been the same since. But then in 2004, we were able to identify the Stephen and Harriet Myers residence, which is an award-winning Underground Railroad site in the city of Albany. For those of you who are familiar with Albany, it's on Livingston Avenue in the community of Arbor Hill. It's been quite a change agent for the community and has been a very significant mover and shaker, if you will, across the state in terms of the work we've done with other sites as well, connecting this history, this local New York State history in its national and international context with our community residents in New York State. And so this particular grant is of significance for us at this point in time because it will allow us to formalize the programmatic offerings that we have been making available over the years and some fits and starts to students in grades 4 through 12. And it will also allow us the opportunity to extend our outreach so that we can very seriously engage and strategically engage students across these grade levels, both for on-site and off-site programming. And for us, the students, the student audience that we are looking forward to engaging with more deliberately not only includes public school students, but also private and parochial school students and students who are in residential and daycare treatment programs so that we can light some fires and bring the history home. So thank you.
Congratulations, Mary Liz. Our final grant in the list today, and this represents just over $60,000 in matching grants awarded under this 2016 program, is to the Untermeyer Gardens Conservancy. You may have read about it in the New York Times. You may have been there. Great gardens. They offer great guided tours, but the one thing that they lack are interpretive signs. So if you wander on the property, right now you can't really get oriented to the history, but these signs will help do that. And I don't think there's anybody here from Untermeyer. All right. So with that,
it's worth noting that Mr. Untermeyer was one of the principal donors to the Metropolitan Museum. He was an enormously successful corporate lawyer who collected art and architecture, and that you know about him. And what more should we say about that? Because nobody goes. It's a beautiful little park. The house was taken down when?
Right. Many years ago. The garden is really a Persian garden, and it has beautiful arches and views out over the Hudson River, and just fell apart completely. And a group led by a fellow by the name of Steve Burns took it on to save it, which they've done, and they have a board, and they've got an organization to raise funds, and they got the former horticulturist from Wave Hill to come and recreate the garden. Marco Polo Stefano is his extraordinary name. And the garden is well on its way to being recreated in the original Persian theme that Samuel Untermeyer was interested in. He was an important person in international relations, too, the American Jewish community and others in trying to bring peace. And so this is an important place. And it's in Yonkers, which needs all the help it can get, if I may say that. And so it's an important development. Thank you, Barney.
Thank you, Ned. There's Ned Haynes, of course, and he represents the district, that part of New York, well, Yonkers is where the garden is,
Yes.
right? Yes?
Yes, it's in Yonkers, right up from the riverfront.
All right. That completes. You've got one or two other things to do.
yes, do you want to do a vote now or after I'm done?
Well, let me see. We might as well do the vote right now then. Do we do this? This is for the total of
just over $61,000.
And I'd like to have a motion, please. Thank you, Bob. Second, Steve. Okay, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you very much, Mark.
Abstentions. There are a bunch of us that have to abstain.
Oh, yes, that's important.
Andy does. Betsy, I do. I think there's some others. Anybody else? I'm abstaining on Friends of FDR.
I'm abstaining from Red Hook.
Okay.
I'm abstaining for the Hudson Islands Land Trust.
All right. Okay. Scott, you got all those? Yeah. All right.
Yes, indeed.
All right. Now, okay. Then we have abstentions. We have a motion. We voted, and we've approved these, Mark. Right?
Yes. Did we vote?
Yes.
Got them all?
All right.
Yes.
We did vote. That was a
Good.
good vote. Really enthusiastic. I would just like to tell all the National Heritage Area grantees that I'll be reaching out to you all to schedule more formal press events with big checks and our members of Congress to celebrate these awards. So be on the lookout for that. Just a couple more updates at our National Heritage Area Management Committee meeting, which will happen directly after this meeting. We'll be adopting our National Heritage Area Work Plan for fiscal year 16-17. That work plan is proposed to include, again, money for grants, money for our Teaching the Hudson Valley program. It will also fund a partnership with the Greater Hudson Heritage Network to provide hospitality interpretive training to a variety of sites in the Hudson River Valley. And, of course, it supports staff for our organization. So we look forward to another positive year with the Heritage Area program, assuming that the 50% cut is restored and Congress can get its act together in doing that. The Hudson River Valley National Heritage Area Guidebook, we're in the final throes of editing proofs. Dan Jeanson is leading the project. We were just waiting on one site to send their information, Montgomery Place. We have no new information to report on their on that location, but suffice to say that they've said that the grounds will be open from 9 to dusk, 24/7.
We have not heard the last on that point.
The 2016 Hudson River Valley Ramble, it's going to be the 17th year we've done the Ramble. The Ramble generates $21 million in economic impact. That's a testament to all the partners that are doing events that connect people with the landscape and the history of the Hudson River Valley. Sponsorships are available. Beth Campachero, wave your hand, Beth, is starting to reach out to corporate and other sponsors for the Ramble, and we look forward to working with you all to help us do that. We have a new National Heritage Area website that I've been talking about for a year. We're also in the final throes of that. We're in the beta testing mode. Dan Jeanson is populating the website with updated content. It's going to be mobile responsive. It's going to include all the technology that people are familiar with today on your smartphone. You'll be able to find events around you. You'll be able to know what events are happening around where you are. So we're really excited about launching that this spring. And appended to my executive director's report is a report on the Teaching the Hudson Valley program. We continue to provide and fund field trip grants to make sure that students throughout the Hudson River Valley are learning and being connected with our cultural and natural resources in the Hudson River Valley. Debbie Duke, who's the program coordinator, is doing a great job and has scheduled this year's Teaching the Hudson Valley Institute, which is going to be held right here in July. The theme this year is going to be Find Your Park, historic site, and museum, to resonate with the National Park Service's centennial theme. And it's going to focus on ways that teachers and administrators can engage students in education that's related to parks and museums. So we're excited about that. My executive director's report is appended for all the board members, but in sum, as I usually do, I just wanted to take a moment to thank my tremendous staff, Chanel Johnson, Scott Keller, Dan Jeanson, and Beth Campachero, for doing all the work that goes into making our organization work. And I'd like to particularly thank Chanel for arranging the audio and video today. I didn't have a lot of confidence that it was going to work as well as it did, but thank you, Chanel, for arranging that today. And, just join me in expressing my appreciation to the tremendous Greenway staff and the work that they do.
I'd always like to hear a word or two about the Rochambeau Revolutionary route. And Colonel James Johnson, retired. Would you lead the discussion on that, please, sir?
Between Mark and
You want to come up here and make it easier? I don't know. You can be heard anyway.
We've been working on this since 1999, the Washington Rochambeau Revolutionary Route National Historic Trail, and the signs are going up that we were able to get done thanks to New York State.
Tell them what it is, Jim.
By now everything's at the safest. But a march by the French from Rhode Island through New York all the way down to Yorktown, Virginia for the Yorktown campaign, joined by Washington here in New York, and the march there. We were able to get support from Congress. Congressman Maurice Henchy led the charge, and we were able to get a National Historic Trail. The signs are going up. Chris and I are supposed to be figuring out how we're going to dedicate one particular sign. We've already started the dedication ceremony for these wayside exhibits. It will be along the trail through Westchester and Rockville counties, including some spots in Orange County, too. We're able to then show this tremendous march that really helps cement the American Revolution victory for the League's potential. So yes, that's one thing. Henry Knox Cannon Trail we're working on as well. Mark and I have been working with the Champlain corridor.
Tell them where it is.
Yes, sir. Back in places. You may recall that in 1775, 1776, Colonel Henry Knox, a 25-year-old bookseller from Boston, was able to take cannons from Crown Point and Fort Ticonderoga and drag them in the snow on sleds across the Hudson all the way through the Berkshires to Cambridge, and then they became part of the cannon from Dorchester Heights that convinced the British they would have been equally in Boston. And so in 1927, the state of New York remembered that, as well as the state of Massachusetts. We've had two projects on this, one to restore, that probably needs to be done again, the bronze bar reliefs on the stone plinths and monuments put up by those two states. Now we're doing interpretive panels to help people understand that. This is a joint project. I don't know, is it Champlain Quarter? Is that good enough? Say all the way over.
Champlain Canal National Heritage Partnership.
We've got money from the National Heritage Area. We have a donor, and we have a designer that is helping us up there to do these signs that will help people understand how great an achievement this was for us. All 59 cannons and orders all the way from Fort Ticonderoga to Boston. You know what? Our guy who learned everything he did from books. Sir, while I have the floor, we're having a lecture on the 21st of April. Hudson River Valley Institute will do the Canadian Hackett lecture on Hudson River Valley history. Will be on Jacob Devers, the forgotten 6th Army Group commander who helped win the war in the European theater of operations. Colonel retired Dr. James Scott Wheeler will give that lecture. He is the author of this slide. 21st of April, Nellie Delay, 7 p.m. I've got some cards to give you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, sir.
Thank you, sir. Jen Johnson is, of course, the military historian of the Hudson River Valley, and is now the recipient of the what do you call it? Okay, there it is. All right, Mark, is there anything else?
That's it for me.
Okay, that's it for Mark. That's it for us. I invite any of you who wish to stay for the following meeting, which starts at, Mark?
12:30.
12:30, which is the
National Heritage Area Management Committee meeting.
You're all welcome. Thank you for attending today. Goodbye. All right, that's it.